So you're thinking about moving to or relocating to North County, San Diego. North County is a nice little hub here in San Diego. Obviously, like I said in the name, the northern part of San Diego. Today, we're gonna get into the pros and cons of where we're standing right now, San Marcos, central area here in North County, San Diego. We're actually standing in a park in one of the little neighborhoods called San Alejo Hills. So we're gonna get into the good, the bad, and everything in between about living right here in this area, San Marcos, North County, San Diego. So let's get into it right now.
Hello, hello, I'm Cassidy Lewis.
And I'm Chris Erickson.
And we are both realtors here in North County. And this is where you come for all things North County. We are dropping new videos every single week on neighborhoods, things to do, places to go, and everything in between. So if this is your first time here, definitely hit that subscribe button down below, because like I said, we're dropping new videos every single week. And if you are thinking about a move to San Diego, definitely hit us up. Call, text, email. We love helping people move to San Diego, so definitely get in touch with us.
And so we've made these pros and cons video specifically for San Marcos before. Today we get into some brand new stuff you haven't heard in the other videos, so stay tuned. There's a really good insight into this video. You know, schools, neighborhoods, all that kind of stuff, some really good info.
One of the first pros about living here in San Marcos is definitely the schools. It's become quite the draw for people moving to this area because they've improved so much over the last 15, 20 years. You've got newer schools that were just built a while back. You've got like San Marcos High School that was completely remodeled just a few years ago. So for all these schools, a lot of the infrastructure is newer, nicer. You've got nice fields, you've got great playgrounds and all that stuff. So it is a great atmosphere for the kiddos.
Right here where we are right now, San Alejo, it's actually one of the only areas kind of in San Marcos where you could actually walk to the schools. The schools are right in the middle of town. So if there's like little trails throughout this community too. So if you have kids, you want to walk them to school in the morning, somebody maybe around here does it too. It's a great little area for that. Plus, like you said, the schools in this area, they weren't here when we were growing up. I lived in San Marcos on the other side of the hill, went to San Marcos High. I call it the old San Marcos High because it used to be like portables and just kind of like a school that was built in like the 60s or whatever. They basically flattened that whole thing. Now it's more of a college campus. So they have, you know, a lot of good sports programs there. I mean, they always have, but they're even better now. They've been growing over the past years. The middle school and the elementary school in San Alejo are when they built this community about 20 years ago. There's a newer one at the top of the hill. So the schools here with a lot of these new communities and money coming in from these new communities, which we'll get into a little bit, have kind of improved the infrastructure of the schools, built more schools over the past 20 years. So it is one of the bigger draws for people moving here to San Marcos.
So obviously the schools here in San Marcos, you've got kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, and there's even a college here in town. But if your kiddos aren't quite to that school age yet, there are transitional kindergartens, TK is what they call it, at some of the schools here in San Marcos. So definitely check out the district website to see which ones might have that. It really depends on age of your kids on whether they can be in the TK, but it's a great option if you can, because you don't have to pay for it. There are also a lot of preschools within the communities. Here in San Alejo Hills, there's 2 preschools that we're kind of looking at right here. And then there's a bunch of them also spread out throughout the rest of the city.
And he just mentioned colleges as well. Cal State San Marcos is a bigger university right over the hill here. So it used to be kind of a commuter school, but as they build out that whole area, it's becoming more of people living there, going to that school. A lot of good programs there. I've known some people going to the nursing programs there. And then actually a junior college, which if you live in San Marcos, it is really inexpensive to go there. So I did my did I do 2? I think I did 2 or 3 years there. I'm not sure, but I did a few years there. Really good school as well. We've actually had people reach out from this, like playing football in there. You know, they have a really good football program as well. So you could go all the way from preschool all the way through college living right here in San Marcos. One of the other things I dig about San Marcos is all the different little neighborhoods, areas. They're kind of bigger. Some are master plan communities and stuff. San Alejo Hills, which we're standing in right now. On the other side of the hill, you have Discovery Hills. There's Discovery Lake right in the middle. You have a bunch of trails and stuff back there. Lake San Marcos has its own little vibe if you're into golf. It's kind of had some transition over the years, and so these older homes, they're smaller footprint homes, smaller square footage homes, but there's golf course right there. There's actually 2 golf courses, the executive and the bigger golf course. So it's like a golf course community. You could drive your golf cart around the neighborhood. And then right by that Cal State San Marcos area, they already have a small portion of it is called North City. and it's kind of like a newer style architecture. It's these big apartment buildings, so there's no real housing in there. But on the other side of Twin Oaks Road, which is the main road cutting the southern portion of San Marcos, they're building this huge new community back there. It's an extension of North City, so they're having housing, condos, commercial, all that kind of stuff going in. It's like a decade-long process, so there are a few brand new construction neighborhoods that are actually getting built right now and going on the market, but for the most part, they're just blasting it, dynamiting it right now. So keep eye on that. If you are a few years out and you want like brand new construction, that might be a good area to check out. On the northern part of San Marcos, it's not as kind of little neighborhoods as the southern part south of the 78 freeway. There's one little area called Santa Fe Hills, which is by that Palomar College area, that is still actually reasonably affordable for the kind of the square footage and what you're getting here in San Marcos. And then the rest of it is kind of little, older neighborhoods here and there, but nothing totally defined. It's just kind of a big swath of different kinds of houses, and there's some new construction or new-ish construction in there. So it's a lot of different spots. More of the southern portion has those distinct little neighborhoods.
And one of the newer neighborhoods that was kind of a recent build over the last 5 years is Rancho Tesoro, which is just on the other side of the hill from San Alejo Hills here. And it is definitely kind of that new modern style of building. The lots are smaller, the homes are bigger, so it is tight. As you're driving down the hill, you see a ton of roofs. So if you do want a little space, a little bit more spread out, all you gotta do is go a little bit further west into Discovery Hills and you get a little bit more space. The homes are a little older, but it gives you that opportunity to have a bigger lot and still a larger enough home, and then get to put your own kind of spin on it and remodel it to your liking. So each community, kind of the ones that we just talked about, has their own little town centers. San Alejo's got its little downtown area with a bunch of shops and restaurants and stuff. Discovery's got a market in a little area right next to it. So each little spot has infrastructure, restaurants, things to get to. And there is no real defined downtown San Marcos like you see like in the Village in Carlsbad or downtown Encinitas. San Marcos really doesn't have that same kind of feel. But there is an area called Restaurant Row right on San Marcos Boulevard that at one point was the spot where a lot of folks that live in San Marcos go to. There were 6 or 7 restaurants. It was always kind of hopping. There's a movie theater there. But over the last probably 20 years, it's kind of slowly changed. There's now a couple chain restaurants in there. Some of the older local restaurants have closed down. So recently it was purchased by a developer with the hope, we're hoping, that it will kind of revitalize that little section and be a positive in the near future.
Yeah, I used to work there. That was like my first job. When it was that older little area, it was a restaurant called Bruno's, nice little Italian spot, and there was a bunch in that little central section of Restaurant Row. There was a little coffee shop in there. There used to be a brewery in there. We'll see what happens with the new development, but there is, like you said, no kind of downtown area where people are going to hang out for like nightlife and that kind of stuff. And since you are central in North County, living here in San Marcos, there's a lot of things to do. Surrounding areas, you got the beach, obviously, coastal. It's probably like, you would think it's like super close, but if you track it out, especially during traffic times on the freeway and stuff, it's probably taking like 30 minutes to get down there. You got some trails in Carlsbad, you got the zoo out in Escondido, or the Safari Park as they call it now. But things to do within like the San Marcos borders, there's a really good parks and trails kind of system. So different little neighborhoods, like we mentioned, Discovery Hills, San Alejo Hills. But if you're looking for stuff to do like within, San Marcos, because as with a lot of different cities around here too, a lot of people live within their bubble. If you're living in San Marcos, you're living in San Marcos. You're living in Encinitas, you live in Encinitas. And you do have a bunch of stuff in Encinitas. But right around here, there's a bunch of good parks and trails. Like I said, we're standing right now in San Alejo Hills, and this is the biggest park, probably one of the biggest parks in San Marcos, one of the newer parks in San Marcos. But you could have birthday parties up here. We've been to a bunch of little kids' parties up here. So I'm looking right behind me right here is a softball field. So softball leagues going on throughout the entire year for the most part. Trails right around here. It's probably the most, and that's how they kind of designed the community, to have a bunch of connecting trails within this little area right over the hills as well. Discovery Hills, there's a nice, it actually could connect to this trail system. You can go to the trail system out in Escondido. So right from this little area, you could hit a lot of little different trails, park-wise as well. Santa Fe Hills on the northern part, Hollandia Park, once again, it's kind of like this style park. It's right by one of the newer high schools that we were kind of mentioned earlier, Mission Hills. But softball fields is a really cool, brought my little guys out there. It was raining and stuff, so there's nobody out there, but there's a really fun little rock climbing wall in the middle of the park. There's a little tiny skate park. So Really good parks and trail system here in San Marcos, depending on what neighborhood you live. Some are kind of more the older neighborhoods, they don't really have it, but they have, you know, sidewalks, walking areas, all that kind of stuff, but not really trails within your neighborhood that you get to from your front door.
And Chris mentioned softball for adults, but they also have a ton of youth sports here. Our kiddos are in AYSO soccer, which plays right here in San Leo Hills and then also up in Santa Fe Hills. So there's a lot of opportunity for soccer. San Marcos has a little league as well, so if you're thinking about youth sports, there are a ton of options. One kind of different thing that San Marcos has that most of North County doesn't, maybe all of North County doesn't, is it has 2 lakes, which you don't see that much here in North County or San Diego in general. But you've got Discovery Lake, which is a great little spot with a park, great trail that goes around. Our kiddos will go on their bikes and scooters and just kind of do loops around the lake. There are spots to fish there as well. But
real quick on that one though, it's more of a pond. It's like
Yeah.
Discovery Pond. It's not, if you're, depending on where you're coming from, you're thinking lakes, a ton of water, really big, you know, I don't know. Even there's some other lakes out in Escondido that are pretty good size. This is like a bigger pond.
Yep.
So it's not like a huge lake, but continue.
well, and they're both man-made
Yeah.
lakes too. That's the big thing, is that we don't see a ton of lakes here because we don't have a ton of water. You know, San Diego, California in general is kind of known for droughts anyway. So if you want a lake, you kind of got to build it. And so you have Discovery Pond
Yeah.
Lake, but then right next door to that, you've got Lake San Marcos, which is an awesome spot. It took me 30 plus years to really dive into how cool Lake San Marcos was, and went out with our family, rented a pontoon boat right there at the marina, and took it out for a couple hours, went fishing, didn't catch anything, but had a great time. It's way bigger than you think too. You can spend a lot of time just kind of cruising down the fingers of the lake. You can find the dam. It's just a really fun time and definitely something worth checking out.
And then within Lake San Marcos, kind of like he said, I've not even ever been on the lake still. I've been to the little bar right there. There's or a little restaurant. It's called, what's Decoy? What's it called now? Amalfi? Oh yeah. And it's right on the lake. So it's killer views right there. But never actually been like on a pontoon boat or anything like that. But I have been to the 2 golf courses right in that community. So St. Mark is the bigger course, the executive course. It's still a full 18 holes, but it's probably gonna take you about 3 hours to play. That's kind of the course we grew up playing. A ton of houses to hit. So if you're looking at any of those houses right around the golf course, you're probably gonna get hit. I mean, people live there too, and I don't know why, they come out mad a lot on the houses I have hit, even though they're living right there. Anyways, that's kind of on me. I'm not a great golfer. But they're really fun courses. Right up the road too is Twin Oaks Golf Course, a little pricier than the other 2, but it's a beautiful course. It's kind of difficult. Like, it's when I did try out for the golf team, I got cut twice in high school, but that was our home course, so I got 2 free rounds there. Now played there a handful of times in tournaments and stuff. There's the flip-flop challenge up there that goes every year. I think Reef was one of the sponsors or something, so hence the flip-flops, but really fun. They have a bunch of those throughout the year too, but it's difficult course, super fun, right in the kind of northern part, north of 78 section of San Marcos. And if you like beer, well, all of North County is a really good spot. All of San Diego County is a really good spot for that. But San Marcos, if you've heard of Stone Brewing, that was one of the OG craft brewers here in North County, San Diego. They started in San Marcos. Now there's another brewery that's still here. They have a few taste rooms around as well, Lost Abbey / Port Brewing. So that's in the same brew house that Stone started, but there's a bunch of other good breweries right around here, different little areas, mostly those business park style taste rooms where they have the brewery and then they have a little tasting room out front. A lot of them are kid friendly. Just kind of look around. Some are not, but just check online before you go if you're bringing the kids there. And then Wild Barrel on the north side of the 78 is probably one of my favorite breweries here in North County, San Diego. They have some Berliner Weisses, so these nice sour beers. They're really known for their hazy IPAs as well. They make some great normal IPAs. They have actually coming up right now, follow them on Instagram because they have these events too. This one is a beer and donut tasting, so a lot of like these heavy bourbon barrel aged beers.
And then my favorite is right here on the edge of San Diego Hills is Double Peak Brewing. Kind of a newer brewery, but they do a really good job. And they've got a great little spot to set up and have a couple beers. There's also a tasting room right here in San Diego Hills that we go to a lot, and it's Lost Abbey and Port, like Chris mentioned before.
And if you do like wine, there's a little winery called Sunshine Mountain, kind of up Buena Creek Road, right on the edge of Vista and San Marcos, but really beautiful views up there. I'm not sure about the wine because I have not dabbled in it, but there's a little bit of a wine scene right up there too.
And another pro of living in San Marcos is really a strong community feel. We're, like we said, in San Alejo Hills right here, and it is part of a large HOA that does a ton of events. You got Oktoberfest, you've got Easter egg hunts, you've got movies in the park, you've got a ton of events that kind of bring the community together, and so it just has that kind of great feel within it. And a lot of the other communities around here have that too. Like San Marcos has boat parades, they have a lot of cool events at the golf course, tournaments and things like that that also really tie that community together. So within each little community here in San Marcos, you will find a very tight-knit community.
And with the HOAs that he said, a lot of the newer communities here in San Marcos, mostly the southern portion, are going to have something called Melrose as well. So it's just basically extra tax when they're building out the developments and stuff. So if you guys have questions on that, it's going to cost you a little bit more per year, you know, in your tax bill. But, you know, just hit us up if you have questions on which specific neighborhoods have it. Most of the northern sections of San Marcos, once you go north of the 78, kind of that older area of San Marcos, a bunch of smaller homes. I mean, there's a big mix, but generally speaking, there's not going to be HOAs up there. There are a few little areas that do, but for the most part, you're not going to have HOAs or Melrose up there. All right, so some of the things that are not so great about San Marcos is, okay, it could kind of go either way. So growth. A lot of people like to see growth. It does help out the communities. That's why a lot of the schools have come up over the past years and now were actually built from all the growth here. However, that adds to a lot of the congestion of the area. So as I'm cruising from my house on the coast to my folks' house in eastern San Marcos, there's been no less than, I don't know, 100 lights put up since growing up. Actually, this road didn't even go through growing up. San Leo wasn't here. It was just a big open hill with the growth. So also growing up too, it was like a lot of open fields. So like right across from my house, there was like an open field I used to hit golf balls into, and like, you know, there was dirt racetracks and stuff around there. Now it's all built out. I think it's a CVS and like a Froyo place or something now. So with that growth, you get newer communities, newer developments, a lot of newness around, money coming to the city, but you also get more congestion cruising around, especially that little area, that Twin Oaks corridor where North City's going up. You're just gonna see it takes a lot longer to get around. And as they build up newer communities and kind of knock down that hill that we were talking about earlier, it's just gonna bring more people in there. They are kind of building out roads, expanding a few little roads in there to hopefully ease some of that. But once again, it kind of goes into San Marcos Boulevard right there, which is a pretty busy thoroughfare. So I don't think it's gonna get a ton better over the next few years. It's just gonna get more and more congested, but hey, that's what you deal with living here in newer areas of San Marcos.
So like Chris mentioned, part of that congestion is because of traffic. They're building a new hospital right in kind of that Discovery Hills area of San Marcos, North City, right on the edge of North City. They're also building North City out, so there's a ton of construction vehicles, there's a ton of traffic because of that. And then in that same little corridor, they are doing the creek project, the San Marcos Creek project, where they're revitalizing the creek that runs through there, making it so there's not flooding, putting in bridges, making a cool trail system. So in the long run, it'll be great, but right now it is kind of a mess. There's a lot of detours, a lot of like spots you have to drive around, but in the future it will be pretty awesome.
And with kind of the growth and, like I said, building in these open fields, open hills, open everywhere, initially, like in the newer construction, it kind of looks ugly, but over time, like right where we are right now, it's had 20 years to grow, so the landscaping's got mature. It's actually pretty beautiful right now. In the north part of San Marcos, it seems like they're like any little hillside and stuff, they're starting to build, you know, new little communities. So they're not like big construction developments. It's like a townhouse, you know, construction, or a townhouse development right here, and then another one right next door, and then another one right up here. So it's like there is a lot of newer houses. There's some of them are apartments and stuff, but it seems like it is starting to take over a lot of that open space around here.
So if you're really into homes with character, which usually means custom houses, San Marcos doesn't have a ton. It is a lot of track houses. It is a lot of the same stucco style, just different ages and generations of it. If you start going to the older neighborhoods, like Chris mentioned, like San Marcos has kind of had a huge transition over the last 20 years because they were older homes and people were remodeling them and making them fresh and new. Those have definitely the most character of San Marcos. There are some spots kind of up in the hills and kind of the rural parts of San Marcos that do have custom houses. There's just few and far between.
And you can see how beautiful and bright it is right here in San Marcos. We were actually planning on filming in Encinitas first today, but there's like a marine layer sticking around. So like within the first few miles of the coast, you get that marine layer. It was actually here earlier. Wasn't it kind of foggy up here earlier? It was like foggy and kind of this weird mist this morning, but now it's crazy warm. Kind of getting a little sweaty right now. We're in the just the beginning of November. It's not odd to have this beautiful weather right here. It's probably like 70 degrees in November, but once again, you're not coastal, so you do get that marine layer burns off a little quicker, meaning it gets a little warmer quicker. So it's a trade-off. It gets hotter here, gets sunnier here. You know, I live at the coast, and a lot of days you never see the sun. It's kind of like overcast for the entire day. Whereas you come inland, kind of San Marcos is basically the barrier for that. San Marcos as a whole, a lot of houses, the older houses on the north of the 78 do not have air conditioning. Definitely the newer communities do, but I know we grew up over there and our air conditioning consisted of how many windows we had, so we just opened all those up and hopefully we had a breeze.
We kind of touched on it a little before, but definitely one of the cons of San Marcos is kind of that lack of like local restaurants, shops, things like that. There's a lot of big box stores. You got your Best Buys, you got all kind of your chain restaurants in that little section of San Marcos, kind of that central area of San Marcos. So within little communities, there are a couple one-off local spots, but there just aren't as many as, say, Encinitas or Carlsbad in those downtown areas. So that's San Marcos. We got into some of the positives, some of the negatives. We love living here. Obviously, Chris loved growing up here, but everybody's different. Everybody has different pros. What's a pro for me could be a con for you, and vice versa. So if you do have specific questions on things that are really important to you, definitely hit us up. Call, text, email. We love helping people move to San Diego, so definitely get in touch with us.
And we have a ton of other videos on specifically San Marcos if you want, or North County in general. So if you're looking at other neighborhoods, Vista, Carlsbad, a lot of people are comparing San Marcos and Carlsbad, or Vista and San Marcos. So we have a lot of those videos as well. Be sure to go check those out, pros and cons style, vlog style, and everything in between. A lot of talking head style, but a lot of information just for you to explore. Dive in there. We have a bunch of playlists on all the cities, so be sure to go check those out. So we got your back. We're moving here to North County, San Diego.